The area around here used to be the free port of Copenhagen, but as you can see, there's a lot of construction work going on, so it's going to be developed into a business, the use of windmills. Around 20% of all our electricity is produced with the help of windmills. And also windmills in itself is a big export of Denmark. Or you must just be doing your morning jogging, or a little bit of gymnastics, or perhaps bicycle riding. Of course, we are also a country of bicycles. Practically all Danes got a bike, and you'll see a lot of people riding their bikes on a day like today. Many people will take, for instance, the same route we are taking, up to Elsinore, to the Kronborg Palace. In front of us, you might think that you will be passing a mosque, 4 million Lutheran Protestants. And perhaps you're already thirsty, then we have a modest bottle of beer at your disposal here on your right. And we are entering the first of the suburbs, a suburb called Hellerup, which is a rather affluent neighborhood, especially if you look down the streets on your right, the streets leading down to the sea. You see many fine old villas there, built in the beginning of the 20th century, that was named the Goulash Barons. That calls for a little bit of explanation. The Goulash Barons, during the First World War, Denmark was a neutral country, so they could build those big villas you see here in these neighborhoods, and they could settle down here. Some of them were really rude people who didn't have. It's always said, well, that is sheer goulash. So this expression is still living, but it derived from the so-called Goulash Barons that built all the villas in this neighborhood. In the beginning of the 20th century, to strengthen the defense of the city. Of course, you never knew what would happen, but this fortress never went into action. Said in an interview that he really did. This fenced area is called the King's Deer Garden, and the palace is called the Palace of Hermitage, means so to speak one of the cradles of Danish industry. There's a stream running out here called the Mill Stream, because there used to be 20 water mills along that stream, each providing the energy for a local business of a king called, this little house there called Villa Rex, used to be a summer house for the king called Fredricksborg, the last of the absolute monarchs. Home, the Rungsted Lund, as it was called. And she lived in Rungsted Lund until she died in 1962. After her death, her home was turned into a museum. This is a very wet area, a very boggy area, so it's not possible to build houses here. And now it is protected also, you are not allowed to build anything around here. The next town we are passing is called Hamlet. These little woods that will pass, and you should look right. No fishermen living here anymore. Now it's a very attractive neighborhood to live in, but when the fishermen were living here, it would be a tough living because they had to go out fishing every day, even when it was storming and raining and there might be ice floating around in the sea. They had to go out every day to try to catch some fish and to provide the means of existence for their family. And that is a little bit hard to imagine when you see this picturesque area where people living fast-forward in Copenhagen now would live. But here on your right, you might imagine that here they would drag their fisher boats up. No harbor. Had to go out every day, and if they didn't catch anything, well, then the children would starve. Now it's a group of people who are going up to perform scuba diving. That's also very popular in Denmark. Indeed, all kind of water sport is popular here in Denmark because the water means a lot, the sea means a lot to us. Very well preserved, but not used anymore as a windmill. But Elsinore has always been a very busy marketplace, as you see it also there today. For instance, this very beautiful flower market here on your left. It's a city with many old houses because Elsinore has never suffered such a great city fire that we, for instance, have had on a couple of occasions in Copenhagen. So if you go into to the city center, which unfortunately time doesn't allow us to do today. Instead, it allows us a visit to the Kronborg Palace. Inspired by because it's seen as the spawns of the beautiful birds that's got the Yes, I can understand. Are we all here? Now there's a little thing here because the strategic reason for why Kronborg was built just here. You see how close we are to Sweden? It's only 5 kilometers across here. And up till 1658, both sides would be Denmark. And the region. So every ship sailing into the Baltic region has to pass Kronborg.
Most of the places that have any kind of cobblestone. Hey, Victor mình thủ yên à, Victor mình thủ yên à.
This is the courtyard, of course.
No pictures inside. The date was 15, 150 years after.
Not allowed to take pictures inside.
Also was known as the Hamlet. So now I have to point you a little bit because Hamlet is a purely fictional character invented by Shakespeare. So that's you.
Tak på min år, skolen er lille, faren er stor. Søen er svær, klipper skær, troer sær bak der. Og denne med nok med kugler, mange der til vejen. De gængte kammer, skolen var bringen mig så. Det var new information for the family, and it's now allowed to take pictures of no fire. Yes, you have to make sure. No, it could be a problem when
flashes of the Vatican, og den gør vi godt af huset. Også går vores rigtig called Christiania after him, because it was one that founded it also. Oslo, Norway, also it was the Queen's Chamber. Middle of the 18th century, the king stopped using this palace. And after the king stopped, it was making story built now, then it was taken over by the military, as it seems also almost. On the top, a very dreadful story about also a Greek legend about Knossos. Knossos was eating.
These are 16th century tapestries.
And so it also with this painting, it shows the Swedish king Albrecht offering the Swedish crown to the Danish queen at that time, Queen Margaret I, on the long hall. And that last name, it really fits the room because it is well long, it's 60 meters long. Even Prince Consort celebrated their silver anniversary in this brand room.
Black. Jake's on.
Wall and then stone and then another brick wall. The Goa castle dating back to the 12th century. And the reason why it's a ruin today is not because that it was attacked by the enemy. No, it was in the old days when the kings or the squires stopped using a manor, they just left it. So it was a sort of a supply, a store, a storage for the for brick building material. You might say it's served in that way. You're not this idea of have veneration from the old buildings and protecting them and keeping them. % of the Danish surface is covered with woods. We have an ambition of raising it to 18% over the coming 50 years. Of course, it's a long-term planning when you will raise woods. But it was actually in the beginning of the 19th down to 6% of Denmark covered by woods. Because for centuries, people had looked on the woods as a sort of everlasting resource where they could go out and find wood to build houses, find it for firewoods and building ships and everything. And then suddenly, when we lost a number of 2,000 all over Denmark. And most of them are still here today and still serving as you put a little bit, little coin or two in the collection boxes because it's rather costly maintaining those old medieval churches. And by the way, right next to the inn where we're going to have lunch, you also find an old village church. Here. Because it's always so in Denmark that the inn is right next to the church, and we say I would say in Denmark saying, well, it's better sitting in the inn thinking of the church than the other way around. Here on your right you have a potato field. That's also something that's very important to us when the so-called new potatoes will arrive, and that's around this time of year when you have the new fresh summer potatoes, and then we'll eat nothing but potatoes all. But for the next couple of minutes, I will offer you a ride through the Danish countryside, and that's my way of trying to prove that our national anthem rightly is called "It's a Lovely Country." I hope you will agree with me. This very typical landscape with the soft hills is formed by the movement of the glaciers during the glacier period. And here on the left, by the way, you have another important crop, Christmas trees. We grow a lot of Christmas trees. Christmas is not a long tradition in Denmark. It came to us from Germany in the second half of the 19th century. But today we're exporting Christmas trees to all over Europe, including Germany. It's actually a quite big export. Well, a clean lake because there are no streams or creeks running into the lake. So you see, even here, old thatched houses and an old village church.
What do these folks do for employment in these little villages?
Relation works inside the agricultural fields.
Yeah, right.
No, you sure not.
There you have the inn, there on your left, and right across the street to the inn again, the church. And now you can sit in the inn and think of the church, perhaps. If you have time to it, you might take a walk and see on the churchyard, see how we keep the graves as small gardens. It's a traditional Danish way to honor our dead, is to keep such a small garden.
This is where we had lunch on our Castles of New Zealand tour. Now I want to take a little look at this church. There's the church in a graveyard, obviously. Some of the old graves and some quite new. (1885), 1918. So this is a typical pastoral church. Don't know what this is, but some way of memorializing something.
New here was a gift from the local municipality to the royal couple, Queen Margaret and...
This is apparently the Queen's palace, and she is in residence at the moment. Not quite sure what all these other little buildings here are for, or were for, but they're all part of the palace grounds apparently. Funny, it looks like a weird face. These are apparently rhododendrons. Now we're at Fredricksborg Castle.
see a lot of houses built in that style. So it was a preferred style by people.
Yeah.
When everybody sees Louisa, two people sitting down on the bench over there, are not joining us inside or what?
No, they're going to stay out.
They're going to stay out. Are you sure?
I'm Elisa, not Louise.
Lisa, sorry. Lisa. And they're staying out, both of them. Okay. So then just to explain you, and Lisa, you were playing to those, to the two people afterwards, that when you like to go back to the coach after we finish the visit to the palace behind me, and was built by, as mentioned, by King Christian IV in the period from 1602 to 1620. He started building the wing at the far end of the courtyard, which was called the King's Wing. Then the palace, the church wing was added, and then finally the Prince's Wing was added. The kings then used it until the middle of the 19th century, and then it caught fire in 1659 and was very heavily damaged by fire, but due not at least to the initiative of the Carlsberg breweries, it was very carefully restored and turned into a museum of Danish history. So it's partly the old palace and partly a museum of Danish history. We will of course concentrate on the part of the original, a little bit of Danish history while we're there. And I reckon that we will end this tour of the palace at around
much more ornate than the first palace we looked at. Look at this interesting sculpture that's incorporated looks like real antlers into the sculpture.
This was finished in 1622. This was built was also because the kings were died for hunting up here. And all the antlers was only the kings that were allowed to hunting here. Poaching, that was a actual offense. But this room was subrosa, meaning under the rose.
Oh, yeah.
This is the deepest confidence. The church, but as there's a wedding in the church, the time being, will come back to the church on the end of the tour.
This must be a typical coat of arms. Of what? It's not, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Crusaders stealing Egyptian artifacts.
dedicated by King Christian V, who was the first king to be crowned as an absolute monarch in Denmark. So it means that it was first decorated in the 1670s. It was a wing that was added to the original palace. And in this room, the king would receive his visitors, for instance, foreign envoys, and the purpose of this room farming. So we better not entangle him. So that was the idea of having these very prestigious rooms. And really to emphasize it, they will also put some scenes of battles on the walls. So you can see that the Danish navy and army were very powerful, so you better not attack us. But also it was very important to them in the 17th century world in India, of course. And also here you can see these artists has clearly never seen in India. We've just heard about some strange...
This was how the king would be lowered by chair out of, there you see the chair, would be lowered out of this room so that he could be said to have left the room. That ended the audience. Oh, you're right. You're underneath my view. Now that's an ornate bed. Wow. Incredible carving in these things.
Here's pointing at the bell of the church of St. Nicholas. If there was trouble with you, I will sound the bell of St. Nicholas, and only the citizens of Copenhagen will come armed and throw you like out. So it eventually ended with the absolute power being granted. Here's pointing at the bell of the church of St. Nicholas. If there was trouble with you, I will sound the bell of St. Nicholas, and only the citizens of Copenhagen will come armed and throw you like out. So it eventually ended with the absolute power being granted to King Fredricksborg III, and the same process also the royalty went from being elective to being hereditary. It means that the oldest son of the king would inherit the throne, as it still is today. And it was celebrated by the very...
The only difference between the two, this is an incredibly ornate room. This reminds me of the one I saw in Vienna decades ago, but this is so incredible. Look at the detail and the mini statuary that's in there. And it's all over here.
Meaning that we are in the later stage of the Dutch Renaissance, the state of Dutch manualism, you can imagine. Oldenborg dynasty, this now is the Fredricksborg dynasty. The Fredricksborg dynasty started, of course, became the king of Denmark, his oldest son, and he was then being from little peaceful Denmark and named him the next king of Greece. Was known in England as the beloved lady, was also a very beautiful lady, as you can see. But anyway, perhaps more interesting history.
The solar system.
I think we're being...
Please take note that no flashlights.
No flash pictures.
are those people?
This would then be the coat of arms of the French
The Order of the Elephant.
And here we have of the Crown Prince. It's the oldest organ in the world that's still
There's Winston Churchill's coat of arms, and then Dwight Eisenhower's coat of arms. And here's the other order, the Order of the something or other cross, for those who are not royalty, but have done something significant. The two exceptions to the Order of the Elephant were the ones I videoed: Dwight Eisenhower, Winston Churchill.
Picture of a Little Mermaid. So we make a 5 minutes photo stop here, which means I will leave again at the 4:20.
No.